Yeah, thanks for the comment, Landon. I hear what you're saying. Now, the thing of it is, though, you say it was removed from the Haftorah readings. When you say it was removed, that implies that it was once in the Haftorah reading. So I ask, what evidence do you have of that? And no response. And that's what I get every time. I have looked myself for evidence that it was once in the Haftorah readings. Can't find any. And the problem with this is basically what you're saying is that the rabbis who supposedly removed this, that they're well aware that Isaiah 53 is about Jesus. They don't want anybody else to know it, and that's why they removed it, which would mean that they were intentionally damning themselves and then want to damn their congregations as well, all the Jewish people that they know and love, their friends and family, right? They want to lead them astray. That's how much they hate Jesus, I guess. And the problem, you can see where that's a problematic thing to say when you have no evidence to back it up. And I don't think that you mean it that way. I think that it's just like, that's what it means. And so I really wish people, this Isaiah 53 forbidden chapter, it's not true. So I wish people wouldn't say it. Now I get it. You believe Isaiah 53 is talking about Jesus. I was raised in the church. My father's a Baptist pastor. So I know why you believe that. I believed it myself. I went and looked at the evidence and I found that the evidence convinced me the other way. I'm not trying to convince you here, but just as far as whatever Isaiah 53 means. But if you think about this, if you go to the book of John, John has a scene, I forget what chapter it's in, but there's a scene where Jesus is speaking to the multitude and he tells them that the Son of Man must be lifted up. And they know he's talking about the way he would be unalived, right? And so they say, well, who is this Son of Man then? Because we know that the Messiah is going to live forever. So clearly the Jewish teachers, as far as the New Testament authors were concerned here, were teaching that the Messiah would live forever. You also have a scene where Jesus says to Peter, who do you say that I am? Peter says, well, you're the Messiah, you're the Christ, right? And Jesus then calls him off to the side and tells him that he's going to have to go to Jerusalem and be unalived. And Peter says, well, are you crazy? Like, why hadn't Jesus taught Peter about Isaiah 53? Or even here would be the great time, well, Peter, you know Isaiah 53, right? The Messiah has to be unalived. Jesus doesn't do that. Now we see at the end of Mark and Luke, there's a scene where Jesus appears to two of his disciples on the road to Emmaus, right? And they don't recognize him. He disguises himself. One of them says he disguises himself. The other one says he does something to their eyes. But this way they won't recognize him, right? And he's walking with them and he says, why the long faces? And he said, where have you been, right? There's this guy and we thought he was the Messiah, but turns out we were wrong. They unalived him. And now the women have said there's something about finding his grave empty, but we don't really know what's going on with that. Now, if these people thought Isaiah 53 was about the Messiah, why didn't his being unalived convince them, right? As Isaiah 53 says, God didn't look at this. He's been unalived. Certainly. Now we're sure he's the Messiah. But that's not what they said. But it goes on to say that Jesus went through all the law, the prophets, and the Psalms, showing them what was about him. And I think this is the New Testament itself conceding that it wasn't until after the death of Jesus that they applied Isaiah 53 to Jesus. So the Jewish people wouldn't have thought that before. And the Jewish people today aren't descendants of the Christians. They're descendants of the Jewish teachers who have taught this all along, that Isaiah 53, the suffering servant, is not the Messiah, right? So there's really no reason why the rabbis would have to hide this from their congregants. They can teach the same thing they've been teaching all along. It's the church who has reinterpreted this passage and applied it to the Messiah, and they make a convincing argument to their followers. I take nothing away from them. But there's no reason to think it would be a convincing argument to the Jewish people sitting in a synagogue on Friday night or Saturday morning, right? So I say this to you not in a mean-spirited way. I just wish people would stop using this Isaiah 53 forbidden chapter, and I hope you give consideration to what I had to say, and have a good day, my friend.